Hi Reddit. I've never posted here before, and honestly, I'm not sure if I'm looking for advice or just a place to vent. My name's Eric, 34M, and I've been married to my wife, Amanda, 32F, for 7 years. We live in a quiet suburban neighborhood, have no kids yet, and up until a few weeks ago, I thought our marriage was solid. Turns out, I was dead wrong. Amanda and I met in college. She was studying graphic design, and I was in business school. She was the type of person who lit up every room she walked into. Funny, smart, and endlessly kind. When we started dating, I couldn't believe someone like her would choose someone like me. I wasn't the most exciting guy, but I was dependable, loyal, and deeply in love with her. We got married 5 years after meeting. The first few years of marriage were great. We traveled, worked on our careers, and started talking about buying a house and maybe even having kids someday. Amanda's work as a freelance designer gave her flexibility, while my job in logistics kept us financially stable. We were a team, or so I thought. Looking back, the signs were there. Amanda started acting differently about 6 months ago. She'd always been outgoing, but she became even more social, often meeting friends for drinks or going to networking events. At first, I didn't think much of it. Amanda's work was heavily based on relationships, and I trusted her completely. But then, her behavior started to shift. She began spending more time on her phone, smiling at texts she wouldn't share with me. She started dressing up more when she went out, wearing outfits she hadn't touched in years. She was more distracted at home, often brushing off my attempts to connect. One night, I asked her if everything was okay. "You seem different lately," I said, trying to keep my tone casual. Amanda laughed and waved me off. "I'm just busy, Eric. Work's been crazy, and I'm trying to make some new connections. Don't overthink it." I wanted to believe her, so I did. I told myself that I was being paranoid, that Amanda was just under pressure from work. But deep down, something felt off. The tipping point came 2 weeks ago. Amanda had gone out for the evening, claiming she was meeting her friend Claire for dinner. I didn't think much of it until I walked into our home office to grab a notebook. That's when I saw it. A handwritten note sitting on Amanda's desk, partially tucked under her laptop. It wasn't addressed to me, and the words on it made my stomach churn. "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. Can't wait until next time. Jay." My heart sank. I picked up the note, my hands trembling as I read it again. Who the hell was Jay? And why was Amanda keeping a note like this at home? For a moment, I thought about calling her, demanding answers right then and there. But I stopped myself. If she had been hiding something, I needed more proof before I confronted her. I took a picture of the note with my phone and put it back exactly where I found it. Then I sat down on the couch, my mind racing. The woman I had loved and trusted for 7 years might be lying to me, and I had no idea what to do. That night, I barely slept. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. Was I jumping to conclusions? Could the note have been from a client or a friend? The tone seemed far too personal for that, but I couldn't be sure. And if it was what I feared, how long had it been going on? Who was this person Amanda was meeting? The next morning, I debated whether to confront her or wait and gather more evidence. I didn't want to accuse her of something so serious without being absolutely sure. But the thought of pretending everything was fine made me sick to my stomach. I decided to wait. I'd watch, listen, and see if there were other signs. And if I found more proof, I'd confront her. For now, though, I was stuck in limbo, caught between suspicion and denial. The days following my discovery of the note were some of the most mentally exhausting I've ever experienced. Amanda seemed completely normal, laughing at our inside jokes, chatting about her day, and even suggesting we plan a weekend getaway together. If she was hiding something, she was doing a damn good job of covering it up. But I couldn't stop thinking about the note. Every time I looked at her, I saw those words. "Last night was incredible." The thought of someone else touching her, of her sharing parts of herself that were supposed to be mine, made my stomach churn. I decided to play it cool and observe. If Amanda was cheating, she'd slip up eventually. I just had to be patient. That week, I started noticing little things that didn't add up. Amanda's phone was always by her side now, even when she went to the bathroom or took a shower. She used to leave it lying around without a second thought, but now it was like an extension of her hand. She also started working late more often, claiming she was meeting clients or staying at the coffee shop to focus on a big project. When I asked her what she was working on, she gave me vague answers. On Thursday, she came home later than usual. She smelled like a mix of perfume and wine, which wasn't out of the ordinary since she often met with clients over dinner. But her clothes caught my attention. She was wearing a tight black dress I hadn't seen in years, the kind of dress she used to wear on date nights with me. When I commented on it, she just smiled and said, "I felt like dressing up. It makes me feel confident." I tried to act normal, but my mind was racing. Who was she dressing up for? Was it this Jay from the note? I needed answers, but I didn't want to tip her off just yet. While Amanda was in the shower that night, I decided to do something I never thought I'd do. I checked her laptop. I hated myself for invading her privacy, but the thought of being lied to again pushed me past my guilt. Her laptop wasn't password protected, so I opened her browser history. At first, nothing stood out, just her usual searches for design inspiration, tutorials, and recipes. But then I saw something odd, a series of searches for a boutique hotel in the city. She had looked up its amenities, directions, and even the pricing for their private suites. The searches were from last week, the day after she was supposedly working late. My heart raced as I pieced it together. Amanda had been to that hotel. I didn't have proof of what she was doing there, but I could make an educated guess. My hand shook as I closed the browser and put her laptop back where I found it. I felt like I was spiraling, my mind going to the darkest places. The next day, I decided to keep my eyes and ears open for anything unusual. While Amanda was in the kitchen making dinner, her phone buzzed on the counter. She didn't notice at first, so I glanced at the screen. It was a message from a contact saved as Jay. My stomach twisted. I couldn't see the full message, just the preview. "Looking forward to seeing you again. Last time, wah." Amanda picked up the phone before I could read the rest, her face briefly lighting up before she tucked it into her pocket. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. She looked up, startled. "Oh, just Claire. She's asking about our plans for next weekend." Claire again. Amanda used her name frequently when explaining her whereabouts, but I was starting to doubt everything. My mind raced as I tried to figure out what to do next. Should I confront her now, or keep gathering evidence? Part of me wanted to scream, to demand answers, but I held back. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured Amanda with someone else, someone who wasn't me. The thought of it made my chest ache, but I knew I needed more than just suspicions. If I confronted her now, she could deny everything, and I'd be left with nothing but my doubts. I decided to do something I'd never thought I'd have to do. I planned to follow her. If she was lying to me, if she was sneaking around, I needed to see it with my own eyes. It felt wrong, but so did everything else about this situation. I told myself it was the only way to get the truth. Amanda had mentioned another client dinner on Saturday night. I told her I'd be home, catching up on work, and she didn't seem the least bit suspicious. As she kissed me goodbye and walked out the door, I waited for a few minutes before grabbing my keys and heading to the car. My heart pounded as I pulled out of the driveway, keeping my distance as I followed her. I didn't know what I'd find, or if I was even ready to face it, but I knew I couldn't keep living like this. One way or another, I was going to find out the truth. On Saturday night, I sat in my car with the engine idling, my heart racing as I watched Amanda's taillights disappear down the street. I had no idea what I was about to uncover, but the thought of sitting at home and pretending everything was fine wasn't an option anymore. I needed answers, even if they tore my world apart. I followed her at a safe distance, careful not to get too close. Amanda drove downtown, weaving through familiar streets until she pulled into the parking lot of a boutique hotel. The same one I had seen in her browser history. My stomach churned as I watched her park and step out of the car, wearing the same black dress she had worn a few nights ago. She walked into the hotel without looking back, her posture calm and confident, as though she had nothing to hide. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I wanted to burst in there, demand to know what she was doing, but I forced myself to wait. If I confronted her now, she could easily lie or deflect. I needed undeniable proof. I parked in a nearby lot and waited, my mind racing with possibilities. Was she meeting someone in the lobby? Heading to a private room? Every second that passed felt like an eternity. After about 10 minutes, I couldn't take it anymore. I got out of my car and made my way to the hotel. The lobby was upscale, with plush chairs and modern decor. I scanned the room, my eyes darting from guest to guest, but Amanda wasn't there. My heart sank as I realized she must have gone upstairs. I spotted the front desk clerk and briefly considered asking if Amanda had checked in, but I knew they wouldn't give me that kind of information. Instead, I lingered in the lobby, pretending to scroll through my phone while keeping an eye on the elevators. About 20 minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and my worst fears were confirmed. Amanda stepped out with a man. He was tall, probably in his mid-30s, with dark hair and an easy smile. He was wearing a suit, and his hand briefly touched the small of Amanda's back as they walked toward the hotel bar. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Seeing them together, laughing and talking as if they didn't have a care in the world, made my blood boil. I wanted to march over there, confront them both, but I forced myself to stay put. I needed more than just this moment to prove what was happening. I needed something irrefutable. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. My hands were shaking, but I managed to snap a few clear shots of Amanda and the man sitting at the bar, leaning toward each other as they talked. They looked comfortable, intimate, like they'd done this before. Amanda laughed at something he said, her head tilting back, her hand lightly brushing his arm. It was too much. I turned away, my heart pounding, and walked back to my car. I sat there for a long time, staring at the photos on my phone, feeling a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. This was the proof I had been searching for, but it didn't bring me the clarity I had hoped for. Instead, it left me feeling hollow. By the time I got home, Amanda still wasn't back. I sat in the living room, the photos pulled up on my phone, trying to decide my next move. Part of me wanted to confront her as soon as she walked through the door, to throw the evidence in her face and demand answers. But another part of me felt paralyzed, unsure of how to even start the conversation. Around midnight, I heard her car pull into the driveway. She walked in, her expression calm and cheerful, like she'd just come back from a perfectly innocent evening. "Hey," she said, kicking off her heels. "How was your night?" I stared at her, trying to read her face, but all I could see was the image of her with that man at the bar. "Fine," I said flatly. "How was yours?" "Good," she replied. We went over some ideas for a new project. Productive, but kind of exhausting. Her lies hit me like a slap in the face. I clenched my jaw, barely able to hold back the anger building inside me. But I didn't confront her, not yet. I wanted to give myself time to think, to figure out the best way to handle this. I didn't want to let my emotions take over and risk making things worse. That night, I lay awake in bed, listening to the sound of Amanda's steady breathing beside me. How could she act so normal, so indifferent, when she was hiding something so huge? How long had this been going on? How many times had she lied to me, looked me in the eye, and pretended everything was fine? I knew I couldn't keep this to myself forever. At some point, I would have to confront her, to show her the evidence and demand the truth. But for now, all I could do was lie there, feeling the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me. The next morning, I woke up with a splitting headache. It wasn't from alcohol or lack of sleep. It was from the emotional weight of what I had seen the night before. Amanda acted like nothing was wrong, greeting me with a smile and asking if I wanted pancakes for breakfast. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to confront her. As she set the table, I cleared my throat and said, "Amanda, we need to talk." She looked up, her expression shifting to concern. "What's wrong?" I reached for my phone, my hands trembling slightly as I pulled up the pictures I had taken. I slid the phone across the table to her. "Explain this." Her eyes widened as she looked at the screen. For a moment, she seemed frozen, her face pale. Then she looked up at me, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for words but couldn't find any. "Eric, she began, but I cut her off. "Don't lie to me, Amanda. I followed you last night. I saw you at the hotel. I saw you with him. Just tell me the truth." She buried her face in her hands, and I could hear her start to sob. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she said, her voice muffled. "It's not what you think." "It's not what I think?" I said, my voice rising. "You were at a hotel with another man. You were laughing, touching his arm, acting like you're in love with him. So, tell me, Amanda, what exactly am I supposed to think?" She took a deep breath and looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "It's been going on for a few months," she admitted. "His name is James. We met at a networking event. At first, it was just professional, but things escalated. I didn't mean for it to happen, Eric. I swear." "You didn't mean for it to happen?" I said, my voice trembling with anger. "You didn't mean to lie to me? To betray me? To destroy our marriage?" "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "I know I've hurt you. I know I've ruined everything. But I never stopped loving you, Eric. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but I want to fix this. I want to fix us." I stared at her, my heart pounding. Her words sounded hollow, like a rehearsed apology she'd been preparing for weeks. I didn't know what to say, so I just stood up and walked out of the room. I drove aimlessly for hours, trying to process everything Amanda had told me. She said she loved me, but how could she? How could someone who loves you lie to your face, sneak around behind your back, and share parts of themselves with someone else? The woman I had trusted more than anyone in the world had turned into a stranger, and I didn't know how to handle it. Eventually, I ended up at Mike's house. Mike has been my best friend since college, the kind of friend who tells you the truth even when it hurts. When I showed up unannounced, he took one look at my face and said, "What happened?" I told him everything. The note, the hotel, the pictures, Amanda's confession. By the time I finished, I was pacing his living room, my fists clenched at my sides. What the hell do I do now, Mike? How do I even begin to process this? Mike leaned back in his chair, his expression serious. "First of all, you need to take some time to figure out what you want," he said. "Do you want to try to work things out with Amanda, or are you done? Either way, you need to make that decision for yourself, not for her, not for anyone else." I don't even know if I can forgive her, I admitted. Every time I close my eyes, I see her with him. How do you come back from something like that? It's not easy, Mike said. Some people can forgive and rebuild. Others can't, and that's okay too. But whatever you do, don't let her guilt or promises sway you. This is your decision, Eric. After leaving Mike's house, I sat in my car for a long time, staring out the windshield. The truth was, I didn't know if I wanted to save my marriage. Part of me wanted to believe Amanda, that she was sorry, that it was a mistake, that we could somehow get back to the way things used to be. But another part of me couldn't shake the betrayal, the lies, the image of her with James. When I finally went home, Amanda was waiting for me in the living room. She looked exhausted, her face pale and her eyes red from crying. "Eric," she said softly, "I know I can't take back what I've done, but I want to make it right. Please, just give me a chance." I sat down across from her, my body heavy with exhaustion. "Why, Amanda?" I asked. "Why did you do it? Wasn't I enough for you?" Her lip quivered, and fresh tears filled her eyes. "It wasn't about you," she said. "It was about me. I felt invisible, like I wasn't enough. James made me feel seen, but it was a mistake, Eric. I see that now. I want to fix this. I want to fix us." Her words hung in the air, and for the first time, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not understanding, but clarity. I realized that whether or not I stayed with Amanda, my life would never be the same. The days following my confrontation with Amanda were filled with emotional chaos. I went from anger to sadness to confusion, sometimes within the span of a single hour. Amanda was trying everything to show me she was sorry, cooking my favorite meals, leaving heartfelt notes, and constantly asking me how I was feeling. But none of it erased the images in my mind or the ache in my chest. I spent most of my time thinking about what Mike had said. "Do you want to try to work things out, or are you done?" The answer wasn't as simple as I thought it would be. On one hand, I still loved Amanda. Despite everything, I couldn't just turn off my feelings for her. On the other hand, her betrayal had shattered my trust, and I wasn't sure if it could ever be rebuilt. One evening, as we sat in the living room, I finally broke the silence. "Amanda, I've been thinking a lot about us," I said, my voice heavy with exhaustion. She looked up, her eyes wide with hope. "And I'm not ready to give up on this," I said. "But things have to change. If we're going to even attempt to fix this, we need help. Counseling, honesty, transparency, everything." Tears filled her eyes, and she nodded quickly. "I'll do whatever it takes, Eric. I'll go to therapy, I'll tell you everything, whatever you need." Her eagerness to fix things felt genuine, but it also made me wonder, was she truly remorseful, or was she just afraid of losing the life we had built? I didn't know, but I was willing to give her the chance to prove herself. A week later, we had our first session with a marriage counselor named Dr. Harper. Walking into that office felt surreal, like admitting out loud that our marriage was broken. Amanda was visibly nervous, her hands fidgeting in her lap, while I sat stiffly, unsure of what to expect. Dr. Harper started by asking us to share why we were there. Amanda spoke first, her voice trembling. "I cheated," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I betrayed Eric's trust, and I hate myself for it. I love him, and I want to fix our marriage, but I don't know how." Her confession felt like a punch to the gut, even though I'd already heard it before. Hearing her admit it out loud, in front of a stranger, made it all feel more real. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath. "I feel broken," I said. "I trusted Amanda completely, and she lied to me. She hurt me in a way I never thought she would. But I'm here because I don't want to make any rash decisions. I want to see if this is something we can come back from." Dr. Harper nodded thoughtfully. Trust is one of the most fragile aspects of a relationship, and rebuilding it takes time and effort from both sides. The fact that you're both here shows that you're willing to try, which is a good start. Over the course of the session, Amanda shared more details about her affair. She admitted that it had started as an emotional connection and gradually became physical. Hearing the specifics was like pouring salt on an open wound, but it also gave me clarity. I couldn't forgive what she had done, but at least I finally understood it. In the weeks that followed, Amanda and I began to establish a new normal. She gave me access to her phone, shared her schedule with me, and made an effort to be more present in our daily lives. Therapy sessions became a regular part of our routine, and while they were emotionally draining, they also helped us communicate in ways we never had before. But trust is a fragile thing, and rebuilding it was harder than I expected. Every time Amanda left the house, a part of me wondered if she was really going where she said she was. Every time her phone buzzed, my stomach tightened. Even though she was doing everything right, the doubt lingered like a dark cloud. The first real test of our progress came when Amanda told me she needed to attend a client meeting downtown, at the same boutique hotel where I had caught her with James. The idea of her going back there made my chest tighten with anxiety. "I can cancel," she said quickly when she saw the look on my face. "If it makes you uncomfortable, I won't go." I hesitated, torn between my fear and my desire to trust her. "No," I said finally. "Go. But check in with me while you're there." She nodded, her expression serious. "I will. Thank you, Eric. I know this isn't easy for you." That evening, she texted me multiple times from the meeting, sending photos of the conference room, her clients, and even the coffee she was drinking. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to me. When she came home, she immediately sat down with me and recapped the entire meeting, answering every question I had without hesitation. That night, as we lay in bed, Amanda reached for my hand. "Thank you for trusting me," she said softly. "I know I have a long way to go, but I'll keep doing whatever it takes." For the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't perfect, and I still didn't know if we would make it, but at least we were trying. At least we were moving forward, one step at a time. A few months after Amanda and I started therapy, things seemed to be getting better. She was putting in the effort, attending every counseling session, being open and honest about her whereabouts, and making a noticeable effort to rebuild our connection. For the first time since discovering her affair, I felt like we were turning a corner. But trust is a fragile thing, and in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the lingering doubts. Amanda's actions were consistent with someone who wanted to change, but my instincts kept telling me to stay on guard. I didn't want to live in paranoia, but I also didn't want to be blindsided again. One afternoon, while I was at work, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello. Hi. Is this Eric?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes. Who's this?" "My name is Rachel," she said. I don't know how to say this, but I think you should know what's going on." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" She sighed. "I know Amanda. We have mutual friends. And I hate being the one to tell you this, but she's been meeting James again. I saw them together last week." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Yes," Rachel said firmly. "I wasn't going to say anything, but when I found out she was married, I couldn't keep quiet." "I'm sorry, Eric. You deserve to know." The call ended, leaving me in a whirlwind of emotions. Part of me wanted to dismiss Rachel's claims as a misunderstanding or a lie, but another part of me couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in my gut. I decided to dig deeper. That evening, I waited until Amanda was asleep before checking her phone. She had given me full access as part of our rebuilding process, but I hadn't felt the need to look until now. As I scrolled through her messages, my hands started to shake. James wasn't in her contacts, but there were multiple messages from a number with no name attached. The tone was casual but familiar, with phrases like "can't wait to see you" and "last time was amazing." I clicked on one of the messages and noticed a location pin for a coffee shop downtown. The timestamp was from 2 days ago, one of the days Amanda had told me she was meeting a client. My heart pounded as I realized Rachel had been telling the truth. Amanda had lied to me again. The next morning, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I waited until Amanda was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping her coffee, before placing her phone in front of her. "Who's this?" I asked, pulling up the unnamed number. She looked at the screen, her face draining of color. "Eric, I can explain," she stammered. "No," I said, my voice cold. "No more explanations, Amanda. I gave you a second chance. I went to therapy with you, I tried to rebuild our marriage, and you lied to me again. How could you? Tears filled her eyes, and she reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I wasn't thinking, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't mean for it to happen again, Eric. I swear. Stop, I interrupted. I don't want to hear it. You made a choice, Amanda. You chose to betray me again, after everything we've been through. Her sobs grew louder, but I felt nothing but anger and heartbreak. I can't do this anymore, I said, standing up. I gave you everything I had, and it wasn't enough for you. You don't respect me, and I can't stay in a marriage without trust. Eric, please, she begged. We can fix this. We can try again. I shook my head. No, Amanda. I'm done trying. You made your decision, and now I'm making mine. That day, I called my lawyer and started the process of filing for divorce. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made, but I knew it was the right one. Amanda's second betrayal had made it clear that our marriage was beyond saving. I moved into a small apartment a week later, leaving the house and most of our shared possessions behind. The space felt empty and lonely, but it was also a place where I could start to heal. I threw myself into work and focused on building a new routine, one that didn't revolve around Amanda or the pain she had caused. As the weeks went by, Amanda reached out multiple times, begging me to reconsider. She sent long emails and text messages, apologizing and promising to change, but I ignored them. Her words no longer held any weight. She had shown me who she really was, and I wasn't going to fall for her lies again. One night, as I sat in my apartment looking through old photos of happier times, I realized something. I didn't miss Amanda. I missed the idea of her, the person I thought she was. But the woman who had lied to me, betrayed me, and destroyed my trust wasn't the same person I had fallen in love with. Accepting that truth was painful, but it also gave me a sense of closure. Amanda's second betrayal had taught me a harsh but valuable lesson. Love isn't enough. A marriage needs trust, respect, and honesty to survive. Without those things, it's just an illusion. And I refuse to live in an illusion any longer. Filing for divorce was a decision I never thought I'd have to make, but once the papers were signed, a strange sense of relief washed over me. The weeks leading up to the finalization had been exhausting, endless discussions about splitting assets, sorting out finances, and deciding who would keep the house. Amanda fought to keep the home, which I was more than willing to give up. I didn't want the memories associated with it. I needed a clean break. Moving into my small apartment felt both liberating and suffocating. On one hand, I had a space that was mine alone, free of lies and betrayal. On the other hand, the silence was deafening. After years of being surrounded by the noise of a shared life, the quiet was a stark reminder of everything I had lost. I spent the first few weeks throwing myself into work, trying to fill my time and distract myself from the emptiness. Amanda reached out a few times, mostly through emails. Her messages ranged from heartfelt apologies to desperate pleas to reconsider. She promised she'd do anything to fix things, that she'd learned from her mistakes. But I couldn't bring myself to reply. Her words felt like echoes of the past, hollow and meaningless. She'd had her chances, and she'd squandered them. As the weeks turned into months, I began to rebuild my life. Therapy became a cornerstone of my healing process. My sessions with Dr. Monroe helped me untangle the web of emotions that had consumed me. Anger, sadness, betrayal, and even guilt. I realized that while Amanda's actions were her own, I had spent years neglecting my own needs and boundaries, trying to be the perfect husband, without demanding the respect and honesty I deserved. One day, during a session, Dr. Monroe asked me, Eric, what do you want your life to look like moving forward? The question caught me off guard. I had been so focused on surviving the divorce that I hadn't thought about what came next. I guess I just want peace, I said. To feel like I'm in control of my own life again. She nodded. That's a good place to start. What brings you peace? What makes you feel alive? I didn't have an immediate answer, but her question stayed with me. Over the next few weeks, I started exploring things I'd neglected during my marriage. I joined a local running group, picked up photography, a hobby I'd abandoned years ago, and even started cooking for myself instead of relying on takeout. Each small step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. About 6 months after the divorce, I received an unexpected email from Amanda. It was different from the others, not a plea for reconciliation, but a genuine acknowledgement of what she had done. Eric, she wrote, I know I've said I'm sorry before, but I don't think I ever truly understood the depth of what I did to you until now. I betrayed you in ways you didn't deserve, and I'll carry that guilt with me for the rest of my life. I hope Someday, you can find it in your heart to forgive me, not for my sake, but for yours. You deserve peace. Reading her words brought a strange mix of emotions. I didn't feel anger or sadness, just a sense of closure. For the first time, I felt like I could let go of the weight I'd been carrying. Amanda's apology didn't erase what she had done, but it allowed me to take the final step in moving on. One evening, as I was sitting in my apartment editing photos from a recent hike, my phone buzzed with a message from Sarah, a woman I had met at the running group. She was kind, funny, and had a way of making everyone feel at ease. We'd been chatting casually for weeks, but her message caught me off guard. "Hey, Eric. A few of us are grabbing drinks after the next run. Want to join?" I hesitated for a moment before replying. "Sure. Sounds great." That night, as I walked into the bar and saw Sarah waving at me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. It wasn't about replacing Amanda or rushing into something new. It was about allowing myself to feel again, to connect with someone without the baggage of the past weighing me down. Looking back, Amanda's betrayal was one of the most painful experiences of my life. But it also taught me invaluable lessons about love, trust, and self-worth. I learned that a relationship should be built on mutual respect and honesty, and that it's okay to walk away when those foundations crumble. Today, I'm in a better place. My life isn't perfect, but it's mine. I've surrounded myself with people who genuinely care about me, and I've rediscovered the parts of myself that I had lost during my marriage. Most importantly, I've learned to let go of the past and embrace the possibilities of the future. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone going through a similar situation, it's this: you're stronger than you think. The pain doesn't last forever, and on the other side of it is a life that's worth living on your own terms.